I'm Anne LeClair, and we're here to share another segment of As Fresh as It Gets in San Mateo County. We're visiting farms, we're talking to winery owners, you name it. We want to let you see behind the scenes. And I'm joined today by Dominick Chirichillo. Thank you so much for being here, Dominick.
You're welcome, Anne.
And Dominick owns Domenico Winery in San Carlos.
That's correct.
Now, I believe you and your wife started the winery. Will you tell us about how it came about?
Well, I'll tell you my story. I'm a self-taught winemaker. My first memory of winemaking was in a basement in Staten Island, New York, with my Italian grandfather who came from Calabria, Italy. And I had the good fortune of being around that as a little kid, as a young adult, as an adult. And my grandfather made wine with California grapes, which were shipped by the produce people from California into New York.
Amazing.
And he made wine every year of his life until he couldn't do it anymore. I went in the real estate business and in 1987 picked it up as a hobby and started making wine with his little hand crusher and his little press. Made 2 barrels of wine, shared the wine with family and friends. The wine turned out well. It was a lot of fun, so we invited people to come next year. We went from 2 to 20 barrels in a basement in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. And every year after that, it kept growing until it evolved into an actual business. We launched the business in the mid-90s as the Bacchus School of Wine in New Jersey. And it evolved to the point where we actually franchised it in the late 90s. I moved my family here in 1997.
Closer to the grapes?
Get closer to the grapes, exactly, because I ship grapes to New Jersey. Right. I've been doing that for about 20 years. We ship about 200 ton of grapes every year in refrigerated trucks. And that business is still going, and we launched Domenico Winery here in 2004. We also have a winemaking club here as well.
I was going to ask you about that. Most people don't know you're not a typical winery. You're a winemaking club as well.
That's correct. So we offer the opportunity to the public to come in and make their own barrel of wine as a gourmet hobby, so to speak, and it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of families. We have the small winemaking equipment that they get to use, and actually it's a hands-on winemaking experience.
So how does that work? I've actually been in there and it's impressive. You have all the big barrels with people's names on the barrels.
That's correct.
So what's the minimum quantity someone would be able to make?
The minimum is a half a barrel, which is 12 cases. Wow. So we pair you up with another partner.
Oh, I see. And so how much work is done by the person who wants to make the wine? Is it turnkey? Did they come in and you already have the grapes and everything ready, or do they?
Yes.
Some people bring their own grapes? No.
Some people do bring their own grapes. We have some small family vineyards in and around the hills in Santa Cruz, and we allow those participants to bring their own grapes.
Interesting.
But, go ahead.
So in terms of the types of wines or how many varieties you make?
So my experience in winemaking is different than if I were a graduate of UC Davis and became an enologist and a winemaker. I make over 20 different wines. So, and that's from my experience in the home winemaking business, because when we were doing the winemaking club in New Jersey, we would bring 24 different varietals. So we would do also blending at the crusher on the smaller varietals. In the winery, we make single varietal wines, blend prior to bottling, which is typical in the winery industry.
So to make wine, just to show I'm a little naive, if someone were to come in and say, I'd like to make my own wine, start to finish, to have the wine be drinkable, how long does that take?
10 months, yeah.
And it gets better after the 10 months?
And it ages.
They can be patient.
Some wines we recommend that they reserve, keep in the barrel for another year, like wines that have high tannins, cabs, big cabs, and some big Merlots. We recommend aging longer.
And then I know periodically you do wine tasting dinners at restaurants. Do you also distribute to restaurants? Or?
Yes, we're in about 40 different restaurants by the glass program, where you can have our wines by the glass, in a restaurant.
So what's the most fun part about owning and operating a winery like yours?
Well, it's a lifestyle business, but it's a passionate business.
Yes.
We work hard, but we enjoy ourselves as much as we can in the process.
Probably a lot easier when you're in the wine business, I would think. And what about tasting room? Tasting room hours?
We have a tasting room open 7 days a week from 12 to 5. We're located at 1697 Industrial Road in San Carlos. People ask, why did we pick San Carlos? And it was... before we decided to open a winery in California, we already had a vineyard in Amador County. So I grow Syrah and Primitivo on 8 acres there. We have additional land to plant, but my wife wasn't ready to move into a farm setting. So she's a city girl, and you know she likes
green acres.
She likes this area.
Green acres, right? That makes sense.
So we're postponing that. My goal is to someday relocate, you know, some of the winery business out there.
So most of your grapes come from Santa Cruz County, or the Santa Cruz Mountains, I should say, which is normally our appellation
right.
for the
so
locals.
We're members of the Santa Cruz Wine
Right.
Growers Association because that's the closest viticultural area.
Right.
So we do Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from Santa Cruz. And the association is a great way to market Domenico Winery to the local businesses and to Santa Cruz appellation. So
you're an expert on wine. I mean, to me, the Santa Cruz Mountain appellation is taking off. I think people are starting to recognize it. How do you think it compares to other areas? And
it's very unique. We've got different soils, unique climate. Being near the ocean, it's cooler. So Chardonnay and Pinot Noir tend to grow really well in those cooler climates. They like the little bit of fog. They do like heat as well, but it seems it's a nice balance. And in the hotter regions, they've been very successful growing Cabernets and other varietals as well.
And doesn't that association have a passport system? There's some kind of a system where you can do multiple wine tastings?
That's correct. I think it's 2 or 3 times a year. There's a passport where you can buy a passport and go to all the wineries. And a lot of them don't even have tasting rooms, so it's kind of unique. They open up for those special weekends, and that's a lot of fun.
Right. So do most of the people who end up starting to make wine or trying to make it start out in the tasting room and then they get the bug because they've seen others, or how does it, are they?
Well, yes. We actually, when we first opened the winery, we had more home winemakers in the Bacchus Winemaking Club than winery clients because we were new in the wine business.
Right.
It's since shifted since the economy changed a little, but we still have a good group of home winemakers, and we're always getting more from people that do come in. And we do hold special events like barrel tasting parties for the home winemaking club, and invite the general public to those. So it's an exciting. The other new thing we're offering is we're actually expanding our space to allow other small wineries to come in and utilize our equipment.
Ah, interesting.
So you know, if you want to be a startup winery and you don't want to buy a building and invest in all the equipment, you can share our space and be an alternating proprietor. So.
And I think that's how, when I spoke with Bart Colucci of Barterra Winery, when he somehow ended up buying a couple of tons of grapes, he said, oh, and I went locally and made it, and I said, it has to be at Domenico, right? Or it had to have been at Domenico.
Yes, he has had wine made at our facility.
Right.
So we offer that service as well. There's a custom crush service.
And then you also have special events, I think. I've seen.
Yes, we have a great facility. We're approved to host up to 250 people. And we do weddings, anniversary parties, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs.
You name it.
You name it, we have the party. It's a great facility for parties. And we're working on a little bit of a nicer curb appeal for the outside. And hopefully in the next 6 months we'll have that, so it'll have a new look from outside.
And your wife Gloria is involved in the business. What's her role in
Every
the business?
day.
Long days.
We're partners, and she's the CFO, and she oversees all the events.
Great. Well, Dominick, thank you so much for being here. What we're going to do now is show our viewers a couple of farm interviews, and talk a little bit about some other fresh and local products in San Mateo County. So I'm hoping that you'll join with me in watching those.
Thank you, Anne. I appreciate it.
We're here in Pacifica at the Coastside Farmers Market, and we're here with one of everybody's favorite farmers, Farmer John Muller, owner of Daylight Farms, also Farmer John's Pumpkins, known to many. John, will you tell us about Daylight Farms and the produce that you have here at the Farmers Market? What do you grow?
Yeah, so we're kind of a little unique operation in Half Moon Bay. We have a lot of just fresh greens, and that's what our Coastside is known for. A number of growers are growing different items. So today we have some Swiss chard, we have some favas, as you mentioned, and we have our herbs, and then we have a few onions for the first time this year. And then
nice.
The coast grows good beets, and beets are very healthy for everyone, and people are loving our beets. So we just try to grow good fresh product, and as I said earlier to people, that we're just 15 minutes down the road with the new tunnel now here in Pacifica, and so people love coming by, and most of our product was picked within the last 5 hours.
Wow. So in terms of beets, is it true, is that just the up-and-coming vegetable? They seem to be on everyone's menu, and I see Daylight Farms beets on a lot of menus.
Well, they're just so healthy for everyone, too. And beets like nice, cool growing conditions. And actually, unfortunately, this winter, we had no rain and no cold weather, but the coast is cooler than inland. So yeah, no, beets are very popular and very healthy. And they can be used in a variety of ways, which I never used to like hot cooked beets, and now we're doing that too, and so we like that.
So any other vegetables that are becoming trendy that you're growing, or you're seeing any trends with other ones?
Without a doubt, and we have some coming because the winter crop finished earlier, but kale is very, very popular.
Kale, of course, that's
kale
right.
Kale is just fabulous, and then all of our Coastside English peas are coming in. And then, you know, I just noticed coming up the road here, the Brussels sprout friends are starting to plant their first Brussels sprouts. So, you know, we'll get in the groove here, and the crowd is wonderful, and these are nice, wonderful, certified markets that we love.
Great. So tell us now about switching hats. Tell us about your pumpkin farm. How many pumpkins do you grow or harvest every year?
Well, it's interesting because I've worked on the seeds last night in between, and so I have 4 giant competitive ones already planted.
Wow.
So those are with the secret sauce. And then it looks like we're going to have about 53,000 plants.
Oh my gosh.
But we're going to have about 47 varieties. I got some new squashes from all over the world, so it's going to be really fun. I got a lot of unique stuff this year. Hopefully they all get growing.
Great. So in terms of people picking up pumpkins for cooking, some are suitable and some are not.
And actually, we've redirected our whole theme this year for the cooking squashes.
Oh, you have?
So we got some real heirloom varieties from different growers throughout the world. And I don't know what they taste like yet, but they look pretty weird. So hopefully they'll be good.
So what's the earliest time people can actually go to the pumpkin farm? I mean, October is obviously pretty packed, right?
Now, we're really working on our transplants this coming week here in May, first week of May. And then we will hopefully be picking some squashes by the first 10 days of September.
Nice.
And it's interesting you ask that because most of the time we sell about 80% not orange up until October.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that makes sense.
They want the orange at the Halloween time.
Now, I've noticed on your pumpkin farm you have a teepee. Will you talk about that a little bit? What's that about?
Sure. You know, many, many years ago, I have a Native American friend, and we talked about it, and it is very spiritual to us, and we respect it. And we've had proposals in there. We've had prayers for, you know, illnesses that we baby boomers are all kind of facing. So it's very nurturing. And then when we do the thousands of school children, we do a reading in there with them, and we try to get everyone calm and comfortable in the Native American teepee.
Now, my recollection is you do something with disabled school children as well out there every year, do you not?
Sure. Our farm is kind of special in a way, we feel, because there's not a lot of distractions. We don't do the entertainment like our neighbors all do, which is wonderful. But we kind of keep it strictly agriculture and nurturing and autumn, fall harvest.
Great. So with that, John, I thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And we're going to talk to Ida a little bit. Here with Ida Muller, the other half of Daylight Farms and Farmer John's Pumpkins. So it's our understanding that you are the expert on the giant pumpkins, and you've had some champions, right? Have you not grown some championship pumpkins?
Yes. I started out growing them, and then after a few years, Farmer John started. So then we had, you know, the big contest, and our biggest one was 1,200.
1,200 pounds?
That was the year mine was 1,200, and his was 1,185. So now he's doing a little more of the growing. We help each other, but he's now...
You have a family competition, in other words?
Yes.
Now, he mentioned something a year or two ago about, I don't know what it was with the weather, and he said you had fans going on your pumpkins, or what's involved in that?
It was one very, very dreary coastal year where we hardly ever saw the sun, and we had to, at that time, we did everything outdoors, and we had to have a cover over it, and we had stem rot, and we had to have a fan to keep it dry, but then we needed to have some kind of heat, and the squirrels were coming by it. It was a very challenging year.
Did you have to sleep with it?
Almost. Well, that was the year we had the 1,200 pounder.
Oh my gosh.
The day before we had 3 that were very nice. And the day before the weigh-off, one of them had a big hole in it. That a rodent near the creek had bore a hole in it. And so John kept watch of the other two for the rest of
babysat for them?
24 hours, yes.
So now what's the secret to growing them? Is it in the seeds? I mean, we see these giant pumpkins which really don't resemble pumpkins. You might want to tell people what they look like.
Well, since about 41 years ago, they started hybridizing, not genetically modifying where you're putting a shark into a pumpkin seed, but open air cross-pollinating large squash and large pumpkins.
Oh, no wonder.
And all these different types of that family, the genus of that family, to have giant pumpkins. Some have more orange, some don't.
Okay.
Now different people are trying to get like the most perfect giant pumpkin that's orange and looks like a pumpkin. But because of the squash crossbreeding, that's why some of them
makes sense.
Very,
I get it. Okay. So now you're the seed expert, John said. Is that all kinds of pumpkin seeds or the big ones or which?
That's nice. He thinks I'm an expert. We, because our pumpkin farm is a little different than some of the others, ours is more to embrace the pumpkin as opposed to other things that some of the other farms do. So we have over 80 varieties of pumpkins, and so that put us on a search throughout the world for seeds.
Wow.
And I came across these seeds from Italy, and when I found them, I also found all these other heirloom seeds that I remember my grandfather growing in his garden. And so I asked who sells them in Western United States, and they said, well, we need someone to sell them.
Oh, perfect.
So John and I thought maybe by being distributors of these seeds, we would be able to stay in farming because something to supplement the farm income in these challenging times. And over the last few years, we've done a lot of seed shows, and John speaks on all this up at like the Northwest Garden Show.
Because they need a seedy character, right?
And so we finally developed a website and a catalog, and so we have a company called The Heirloom Seed Store.
Oh, interesting.
And it's an online store.
Great. So one final question for you. I know you're a great cook and you have all kinds of recipes. Where those are found on your website, I believe?
Well, we have several recipes on farmerjohnspunkins.com website, and we will be putting more in, and we've had people ask to try to do a cookbook, so that could be in the offing.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Ida.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time.
Great seeing you. Thanks for coming to the market.
Pacifica at the Coastside Farmers Market, and I'm joined by Erin, who is the manager of the Farmers Market and the founder of Coastside Farmers Markets. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
Now, Erin, you started the Farmers Markets in Half Moon Bay, is that right?
That's correct,
And how long ago was that?
So we are going to be this year going into our 11th full season. Wow. So it was actually 12 seasons ago. Wow. Our first season was just a once a month, see if it would fly kind of a situation. So yeah, we're going into our 11th full season in Half Moon Bay this year. That opens on Saturday, and today's opening day for the 6th season in Pacifica.
Nice. Yeah. And it's primarily local farmers. Is that the whole idea behind your farmers markets?
That's right. It was the whole philosophy and our guiding philosophy was that we wanted to make a direct market available to many of our local growers who, even though there were a number of large markets in the urban areas and our communities and close to our counties, very few of them participated in those markets for a number of reasons, not the least of which was that the general idea about what was grown out here on the coast was that all we had was artichokes, Brussels sprouts, pumpkins, and the occasional Christmas tree. And actually the diversity of products that are available is pretty astounding, although we do have a somewhat isolated, not an isolated climate, but it's certainly a microclimate and a different kind of ecosystem out here. So certain things grow here beautifully that don't grow in the valley. So we wanted to showcase our local San Mateo County growers, give them a venue and a voice that was strictly theirs. The only produce that we allow into the market is stuff stuff that's being grown that we don't grow here at all, like the stone fruit and that kind of thing. And as you can see from today, it's still a little in the season, a little early in the season for that. And then there's certain kinds of just market demand, so that we have some growers that are just close to San Mateo County that come in and sort of fill in the blanks for us.
Yeah. And it looks like now you're in the farming business or the egg business. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, part of the reason I started the market was that I had a very small farm, and I always supplemented my income doing event management and work in the nonprofit sector, a lot of interim directorships, that kind of thing. And I worked a lot in projects that had to do with education and food issues, and let's call it for what it is. It's hunger, and it's everywhere. And a lot of it exists in the farming community, which is an odd thing. That's another conversation we might have one time. But at any rate, I had this little farm. I had a very small amount of product, and I couldn't get into a market anywhere. But I also had relationships through my nonprofit activities with restaurateurs and things in the community where I would bring conferences to them. So I got talking with Paul Shankman, who is the founder of Citrella, now Sam's Chowder House. They were just great, and he and I just got talking, and he gave us, they've just presented what I call a really lovely Valentine to me and to the community by saying, if you can make it happen, you can have my parking lot and I'll insure you for the first 3 years, which was humongous. So it was huge. And so having that opportunity to site the market there, especially given the history of that building, which it used to be the Producers Exchange, which was one of all the local growers would bring their produce there, and then it would go out to other communities from that location.
Perfect spot.
So yeah, it was a perfect spot.
So now these, I've noticed families coming over saying, "Oh my gosh, they look like Easter eggs." I mean,
they do.
I don't know if our viewers have ever had farm fresh eggs, but there's a world of difference. And you said they've gone back to the original, what eggs are supposed to be? What did you mean by that?
What I meant by that is that every egg that you're going to buy in a grocery store, whether it's a very high-end thing like a Whole Foods or a Draeger's, if they're producing them in that quantity, as a general rule, they're going to come from 1 or 2 different kinds of birds that by the nature of the business they have to keep in some kind of confinement. And it still might be cage-free, it might be some other thing, but it's not a wild environment for them.
Oh, I see.
And chickens are not vegetarians. They are omnivores, and if they don't get a nice balance of both grains and basically animal protein like worms, bugs, snails, slugs, all that kind of thing, they're not going to produce the egg that our grandparents ate, which was one that had perfectly balanced lipids, where the good cholesterol was way up here and the bad cholesterol was not in them at all, where the protein structure was extremely muscular and really solid, and it was a perfect food until we industrialized chickens and fed them nothing but either corn, which there's no living being that can do anything with corn when they eat it except change it into sugar or fat. And not necessarily the good kind of fat. So it's not just happening to chickens, it's happening to people, it's happening to the chicken we eat, it's happening all over the place. So the chickens that I raise I work with the American Livestock Breed Recovery Project, which is looking to broaden the diversity of our food stock, which is under siege. And not just with chickens, but that's what I'm able to do. So I have a flock of 200 right now, about 180 of them are hens. I only have 9 roosters at the moment.
180 hens and 9 roosters. They're happy guys.
They're happy guys, and the girls are happy. So so there are all these different varieties that you normally wouldn't see in any kind of a production setting. And some of them are actually quite rare. There's less than 1,000 breeding pairs left in the world. Wow. So it's just a very unusual thing to ever see an egg.
Yes.
That color.
I don't think I've ever seen a polka dot egg before, other than when I dyed myself.
Or one like this. These come from a thing called a copper moran. As you can see what happens with these. I mean, they're beautiful, but this protein that gets deposited on their scratches and things like that, so people didn't want them because they didn't look perfect. Like, they didn't look perfect like a beautiful, perfect white egg. And one of the real problems with white eggs is a lot of them come out of relatively rare hens, but because of the market desire that was driven by this whole white egg, because you could see that they were clean, you could see that they didn't have any detritus or whatever on them, they sort of became this standard. And there's so many people that will go through these and be absolutely shocked to discover that white eggs don't get bleached, that yes, you can have a beautifully foraged, perfectly pastured egg, and it will be white. And I always tell people there's a beautiful painting by Vermeer that's called A Bowl of Eggs, and it's this beautiful silver bowl, and it's just full of these beautiful glowing white eggs. And believe me, they were not bleaching them.
No.
Yeah.
So the last thing I think we should cover is we didn't mention the name of the product. I think it's so cute.
So Farm Fatales is just, it's, you know, and I like to have fun.
That's right.
But it's kind of a deadly serious thing. Sure, because a lot of these girls are knockouts and they're beautiful, and you know, and so I definitely have fun with that. And they're going to be the death of me. That's probably true too. But they are all a number of breeds that are in jeopardy, and so I have fun with it, but it's great because it provokes questions.
Sure.
And all the different colors provoke questions.
So you get to educate people.
I get to, and myself too. You know, it keeps me interested. But it also, I think it's really important for people to understand that exchange that you make, you know, when you actually make the choice in your life to invest in your health and invest in the food, and that means you're investing in the farmer that farmed it, which means you're investing in your community. Sure. And so in the markets like this, that's the whole bow on the package, is that people, we've done a lot of work to get a number of programs in here, like our EBT program, Market Match, a number of these programs that we have for seniors that we've worked through Congresswoman Spears' office to have here. And we're the pilot project for a number of market ideas in San Mateo County, which is great fun because we have this little geographic isolation that allows us to really get a test group that stays solid. People typically, if they live in Half Moon Bay and they're going to shop the Half Moon Bay market, or live in Pacifica and shop the Pacifica market, typically don't like bomb over to this guy, you know, they don't go to the other markets that pop up. They kind of tend to stay cohesive, so we can track that. But the multiplier effect that happens when you have a farmer's market where the bulk of your growers and producers and food vendors are from within the county, that means the money that gets spent here stays here. Of course.
Well, Erin, congratulations on your years of success with both markets and on your own eggs and farm. That's just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming down. It was my pleasure.